Good morning. One Heart, One Mind Center for Spiritual Living. And I am going to kick us off with just music this morning. We're just going to do sound because I've discovered that when I do the videos, we get a little glitchy and we don't want that. Nobody wants to be glitchy. So I am going to start this, and we've heard this one before, but I really, really like it, and it just kicks us off for what we're doing today. So here we go. You're gonna hear that?
Everything beneath the sun breathes like a harmonium. Pure perfection has begun, shining like a midnight sun. Out of darkness I have come. I see God in everyone. Let me be an instrument, guided by an heaven sent. May these grapes of pain ferment, alchemize to love's content. Ever be a sacrament, knowing God is my intent. God, let me know your name. Hold me in the same breath as your word. God, I feel you all around. Oh, how you astound me with your grace. Rolling like a thundercloud, let me live my love out loud. Standing for mankind and proud, baptized in a holy shroud. Peace be still and know me now. God is in all I have found. God, let me know your name. Hold me in the same breath as your word. God, I feel you all around. Oh, how you astound me with your grace. God, let me know your name. Hold me in the same breath as your word. God, I feel you all around. Oh, how you astound me with your grace. God, let me know your name. Hold me in the same breath as your word. God, I feel you all around. Oh, how you astound me with your grace. Out of darkness I have come. I see God in everyone.
Mm. I just think that the lyrics are just so lovely. Well, good morning again. And welcome with me, our practitioner of the day, Ralane. And Ralane, it is so incredibly good to see you. You have been foremost in our prayers over these last weeks. We love you so much. So glad you're here.
Thank you so much. I love you guys too. Oh, that song was just so wonderful, Reverend Michelle. Thank you. Well, today's topic is, I think, blossoming in the swing. Is that correct, Michelle? Yeah. So this story is represents a small part of that with some people in Pasadena, California. So the First Methodist Church is on Colorado Avenue, where it intersects with the Rose Parade every New Year's. And entering a sacred space can stir emotions. And Reverend Amy Aitken, the pastor there, says that this church has always felt holy, and often visitors whisper when entering. This Methodist church has become a safe place for two other religious groups that are sharing for worship: the Islamic Center of Southern California and the Pasadena Jewish Temple. With the conflicts in the Middle East and Gaza, these three seem unlikely cohabitants in a sacred space. Yet, here in Pasadena, these three groups form a microcosm of peaceful coexistence united by tragedy. In January, the Pasadena temple burned down in the Eaton fire. In this time of grief, the Methodist Church, already hosting the Islamic Center members as a satellite worship location, also welcomed the Pasadena temple community. Reverend Aiken says, "We are trying to cultivate an island of grace in the midst of differences that we are told should divide us. All three of us worship under the same roof." Some years ago, the Islamic Center began a relationship with the Methodist Church because of a football connection. Dr. Rizman Badi, an eye doctor and former board member of the Islamic Center, connected with a patient, a former pastor of the Methodist Church, through their mutual interest in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Dr. Badi was looking for a satellite location for the Islamic Center for their prayer service on Fridays. The Methodist Church said they had a meeting room available. Dr. Badi said it resulted in not just a place where they meet, it's a place of connection between interfaith partners. And now there's a third partner with the Jewish congregation. Dr. Badi says it's a great blessing for the entire community that people with different faiths are able to come together in difficult times. Irish writer Sebastian Barry wrote, "There is seldom a difficulty with religion where there is friendship."
Mm.
Reverend Mina, an associate pastor from the Islamic Center, says, it's all a place of God first, and a space of God needs to be open to all people. So the Islamic Center holds Jummah services on Friday midday, Friday evening Shabbat services, and Saturday Sabbath services for the Pasadena Temple community. And Sunday, the home team, the Presbyterian Church, gathers. Alyssa Levy, the executive director of the Pasadena Jewish Temple, says, "I think it is a great reminder to support and make ourselves better human beings so we can make the world just a little bit better together." Along with losing their place of worship, 70 congregational members also lost their homes to the fire. Sandoval Fong says the Methodist Church is a quiet place after the fire that allows the mind to reckon with the loss and unexpected beauty of finding a new interfaith community. Her daughter, Heather, was planning her bat mitzvah before the fire and just completed her bat mitzvah at the Methodist Church, making it the very first bat mitzvah ever to be held there. "I could not think of a better place for my daughter to have had her bat mitzvah," said the mother. Reverend Aiken says, we may not know how to change things on a global macro level, but in this corner of the world, we can try and create a kind of community and a house of worship that God would recognize. And to me, these religious communities, worshiping all under the same roof is sacred. In her book, Living Beautifully with Uncertainty and Change, Pema Kadron defines sacred as a sense of something precious, rare, fleeting, fundamentally genuine, and good. So let's pray. And since we know that God is all here in this space already with us, and we are with God, then we're one. We're one with ourselves, we're one with our family, our friends, our community. We're one with the One Heart, One Mind community. We're one with the United First Methodist Church and the Islamic Center and the Pasadena Jewish Temple. And all the different religious groups, we're all one throughout the United States and in the world. We're all people together gathered in one consciousness, one energy, one love. And how great it is to feel this connection and this oneness, this acceptance and freedom of just blossoming and the swaying as we help one another being the best we can be and helping others be the best they can be and having a reverence for all of life. And so I'm so grateful for the service this morning. I'm so grateful for all of you. I'm so knowing that this is a perfect and absolutely amazing service with Reverend Michelle, and because all of you are here with us together, and all those that are not with us are still with us. And so I release this prayer into the divine law with gratitude in my heart, peace, love, and grace, and simply say, and so it is.
So it is.
The comfort of the Spirit comes into the stillness of my heart. Peace, like an ocean of infinite life, reflects itself through me and calms every turbulent feeling. I'm at peace and rest in the knowledge of all good, which is at hand. And that's Ernest Holmes.
Buddy. That was beautiful. I love that story, Ralane. That was just really filled my heart. Thank you for sharing that. Carol was lovely as well. But I just really enjoyed that. So I'm going to play a song by Daniel Nahmod. It's called Cornerstone. And the reason that I've chosen this song is because it really illustrates the principles that we're going to talk about that I'm going to talk about in the message today, which is our foundation and what we stand on. And we can think of cornerstone as standing on the principles of the divine, standing on truth. So I'll let Daniel speak for himself here. Get it up. Oh. Here we go.
I cannot build a castle or bridge. I cannot build a tower to the sky. I cannot build the humblest home without a cornerstone. I cannot walk adrift in this world. I cannot sail the infinite ocean. I cannot climb a mountain alone without a cornerstone. Cornerstone. Something solid, something true, something never moving beneath me, something ancient, something new, on which I can rest completely.
Yeah. Life ain't gonna stop, and either is the pain. Sometimes I get caught up, drowning in the rain. So my mind tries to take control again, but the bumps and bruises give me adrenaline. The journey is unknown, and I've never had a plan. So I keep trying to get up with my own hands and my heart on my own, and keep coming back to my cornerstone.
Something solid, something true, something never moving beneath me, something ancient, something new, on which I can rest completely. I cannot go where I've never been.
Every time I get caught with my
I cannot do
I'm gonna find it.
the work that's mine to do.
Gotta keep faith, and
I cannot climb that mountain alone without a cornerstone. Yeah,
just gotta keep faith, and
I cannot know the meaning of home without a cornerstone.
Oh, so that kind of sets the stage for what we're talking about today. I'm gonna put this view on speaker. Oh, so let me say good morning again. Good morning. Welcome to One Heart, One Mind Center for Spiritual Living. And as always, whether you're here in real time or replay, I'm just grateful that you're connecting with us. And it is always my sincere desire that you be fed in some way by something you hear or feel or experience in today's service. So welcome, 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 welcome. I'm so glad you're here. So this morning, the Sunday message, as Ralane mentioned already, is blooming in the sway. Or as Ernest Holmes, our founder, put it, the power within you is the power of God. The presence within you is the presence of God. And this is why you are strong. This is why you're strong. Oh, I love that. Let's just let that sink in. This is why you're strong. This is why we can sway with life's experiences and still blossom. Because we have within us the presence and the power of God. That's who we are. This is our cornerstone, as Daniel said. And the idea of the sway brought to mind for me the way that trees sway in a strong wind or a severe storm. You know, their root system stays firm in the ground and the earth. And at the same time, the tree's trunk and the main branches are flexible enough to move with any outside force that they encounter. You know, they sway rather than break. And maybe some of the smaller branches might break off, but the trunk stays balanced and the upper portion of the tree is flexible in the face of any opposing force that's coming its way. And it doesn't push back either. It bends and it sways. You know, what an excellent metaphor for us to establish ourselves in the foundation of our spiritual roots of who we are in God, so that we can be flexible in anything we encounter when we're rooted in spiritual principle, when we're standing on that cornerstone. It allows us kind of the spaciousness to hold everything, to move through life, bending and swaying rather than breaking. And the idea of having the space to be present with what is, whether it's something challenging or whether it's something pleasant, it brought to mind for me an idea that I ran across a while ago when I was listening to Tara Brach's podcast, one of her podcasts. And Tara Brach, I've shared her stuff before. She's a psychologist, and she's an American Buddhist teacher. And in this particular podcast, she spoke about the Buddhist concept of the four abodes. They're called the Brahviharas. And their qualities or attributes that are considered the highest and most divine emotions that a person can develop to live a harmonious life, to live with themselves and with others. It's sort of a bit like Jesus's advice to love your neighbor as yourself. And the idea is to establish a sense of divine presence, of divine love in ourselves, so that we can see it in others and live it in our daily lives. And there's actually a very strong correlation between the four abodes, the Brahmaviharas, and the science of mind philosophy. They both emphasize cultivating a higher consciousness by aligning with spiritual principle. They both encourage a mental discipline. We do that. We encourage a mental discipline. Where are we putting our attention? A spiritual awareness, an awareness of the presence of the divine all around us, and the realization that we're the ones who shape our experience through what we know, through what we know to be true, through who we are, really. Buddhism teaches accepting life's changes without attachment or without aversion. And science of mind teaches us to trust that everything is unfolding perfectly, even when circumstances would tell us otherwise. We've all had those. So the four abodes, or Brahmaviharas, are loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy. I like that sympathetic joy because it makes me think that we're sharing the joy with all. And then the last one is equanimity. And it's this fourth abode of equanimity that I think can kind of help us understand today's topic of blossoming in the sway. Equanimity is an inner balance. It's staying steady despite life's ups and downs. Living in equanimity kind of helps us stay calm, balanced, no matter what's happening around us. Much like the tree, able to sway in a severe storm, to bend but not to break. Equanimity is this, it feels very open and present. It's a loving presence. It's spacious. It doesn't grasp a hold of anything. Oh, I like this. I'm going to hang on to it. I'm afraid to lose it, or push anything away. Oh, I don't want to feel that. It's kind of a mental calmness and composure. It's sort of like an even temper, especially in difficult situations. Equanimity lets us recognize what's true, even if it's painful, and still know peace, even as we know a painful experience. And that doesn't mean we have no feelings about anything. Equanimity is not a state of blankness, and it isn't passive either. It's a state of spaciousness that can relate to any feeling or any situation, anything that comes up. It's a trusting of life, and knowing that life always moves forward into a greater expression of love and of freedom. Really, it's the ability to be with whatever shows up. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Because as human beings, we're hardwired to react. Our most primitive instincts are to be highly reactive. Our survival instincts have rigged us to react. When there's something pleasant, our brainstem and our limbic system tries to grasp onto that something pleasant. We want to hang on to that. And when we encounter something unpleasant, we have a quick reflex, even faster than our thinking brain, to push it away or run away or avoid it in some way. And this conditioning, it has allowed us to survive as a human species. It's been a good thing for us to react to what's happening in the world around us. But as metaphysicians, as beings who have grown and expanded and matured in our understanding, we know that to react isn't really the most enjoyable or the most fulfilling way to live. A much more spiritually awake way to be in the world is to be able to be fully engaged with life and not only identify ourselves with what's going on around us in the material world, but to identify ourselves with who we are in God, to be aware of our spiritual roots. Remember, Holmes told us, the power within you is the power of God. The presence within you is the presence of God. This is why you are strong. And this perspective creates a larger space to contain all of our experiences. This is what the quality of equanimity does. And even though we know that we're wired for survival and to react, we also know through the science of neuroplasticity that we can consciously rewire our neural pathways to consciously respond rather than react. And we know that it's just as natural for us to grow and expand and mature in this way as it's been for us to react and to survive in the past. And the spaciousness of equanimity supports us in doing that. You know, Buddha said that let me read it. I'm going to mess it up if I try to. Buddha said, develop a mind that is vast like space, where experiences, I love this, where experiences, both pleasant and unpleasant, can appear and disappear without conflict, without struggle or harm. Rest in mind like a vast sky. I love that line because it reminds me very much of what we say in Science of Mind, in the infinite mind of God. You know, and let me share a story here that I think helps describe this state of equanimity. This story comes from Tara Brach too. She actually used this to illustrate the concept of equanimity. And so she tells a story about a woman who was at a meditation retreat. And the woman was having difficulty doing a walking meditation, you know, which is just being aware of the experience of our movement. It's certainly slowed down a little bit so that you can kind of fully experience movement, but it's still moving. And this woman didn't want to do the walking meditation at all. She just had an aversion to it. So she asked her teacher if she could just do sitting meditation instead. And the teacher said, the teacher knew that if she was resisting it that much, there must be something in it for her to learn. So he suggested that instead of doing any sitting meditation at all, that she do a full day of walking meditation. And of course, she didn't want to do that. And then they finally came to a compromise that she would do a half a day of walking meditation and a half a day of sitting meditation. And then that's what she did. And then afterwards, she offered this note. I'm going to just read what Tara Brach wrote because she says it way better than I could have said it. So here's what she wrote. She wrote, long walking meditation all morning. Assignment completed. Thank you. Now I can meditate while moving. I thought I might discover why I've been so resistant to it, but no. Circumstances taught me something else instead. I chose to walk in the annex walking room because it's small, beautiful, and usually quiet. Today, however, it was noisy as hell. There was some guy in there walking as if he were the little engine that could, wearing little noisy boots. Well, I thought surely he'll be gone when the walking period ends. No such luck. This madman pounded his way through an hour and a half, except when he paused to drink or remove a noisy layer of clothing. So I moved into a loving kindness practice, thinking surely he must have a lot of pain to be so driven. And then I realized I wanted to kill the SOB. I stood there saying, hate, hate. Later, I stood in the middle of the room and wept. Tears, tears. And then I got to the point that I realized whatever problem he has, this was his, not mine. After that, I got quiet. and he was just sound. And so I walked and breathed, and he paced and pounded. And pretty soon it was all the same to me. His noise, my breath, the movement of my body. After an hour and a half, he left, and it was incredibly quiet, which was different, but not as much better as I had expected. Mostly, it was just different. I really, really like that story. Can you hear or can you feel the equanimity that grew out of that experience for this woman? She stayed with the walking. She stayed with all the experiences that were going on inside her. She tried loving kindness. That didn't work. Hate, hate, tears, tears, and that didn't work. And that led her to quiet by bringing presence to the different layers of her experience. She discovered that space of equanimity. And as soon as we're in that space, as soon as she was in that space, as soon as we come to that place and we're completely present, all that stuff, that noise and that breathing, they can all come and go. And we can still be grounded in the strength of God within us. Nothing outside of her changed. She was just no longer identified with what was going on out there. She was much more identified with the presence within her, who she was in God. And this is the gift of equanimity. It dissolves our sense of, it has to be the way I want it to be. I won't be at peace or I won't be happy until it's the way I want it to be, or I won't enjoy life until everything is the way I think it should be. Equanimity makes space for everything to be present. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have preferences. We do, but it means we have the ability to be with what is, while we hold in consciousness the feeling of what we want to experience. We don't hold on too tightly, or we don't resist anything. We just let things come and go. And this is just such a great example of the power of equanimity. And it occurred to me that equanimity is very similar to the concept of surrender that we practice in Science of Mind. In Science of Mind, surrender doesn't mean giving up or being passive. It means releasing resistance and aligning with the divine flow of life. It's about trusting that the universe operates through perfect spiritual laws and that we don't have to control everything. We only have to focus on our thoughts and our feelings and our state of being, because these are the patterns that activate creative law. And instead of forcing outcomes, we surrender to the higher intelligence of the universe. We surrender to the higher knowing of spirit, which is always beyond our limited human perspective. And we trust the infinite wisdom that's at work. Instead of resisting life's changes, we practice acceptance and peace in each moment. Equanimity feels very much like surrender. It's not weakness, it's strength. It's the art of trusting and flowing and allowing, knowing that the universe is always working in our favor. Remember, Holmes told us, when we surrender to the infinite, we find peace, we find joy, and the realization that all is well. And we have many different spiritual practices that support us in living in equanimity and in practicing surrender. I always like to mention this. We have affirmative prayer. We have meditation. We have that stillness. We have gratitude. We have non-resistance. And our daily lives, as I've pointed out a lot recently, our lives offer us so many opportunities to practice. Practice, practice, practice. I'll give you an example from my own life. So I have discovered that one of the places where I am really challenged, where it's difficult for me to keep my sense of equanimity, of peace and non-resistance, is when it comes to what's currently going on in our country. And in all honesty, this really is not about politics. I'm really grateful that we have a two-party system. I think it keeps us balanced. But for me, it's more about adhering to the basic principles of equality and freedom and justice that I've always believed our country was founded on. And we've never been near perfect. We've always been a work in progress. But it appears to me that we're moving further and further away from these foundational principles. And I know I've shared before that I stopped watching the news because it brings up so much frustration and anger for me. Because what I find myself doing when I watch the news is I find myself creating enemies and grievances. I start seeing from a perspective of the good guys and the bad guys, and I start resisting what it is I don't want. And I get very polarized. But lately I've realized that I cannot cut myself completely off from everything that is happening in the world around me. I think it's my responsibility to develop an attitude of equanimity that doesn't resist or ignore what's happening in the world. And I don't think I have to immerse myself in the news and everything that's going on. I think it's very fear-based. But, and I really don't want that. But I do think I should know what's going on and be able to see things that without going into that place of, oh no. And I get glimpses of things that are going on around me. I'm online all the time. And so I see stuff. So rather than ignoring them entirely and pushing them away, here's what I've been doing. So when I see something that I find upsetting, I pause and I give myself that space to be with how I feel. Usually it's anger or frustration. And I just sit with it. I let myself feel it without resistance, without pushing it away. And then if I sit there with that for a few moments, usually what bubbles up for me is generally fear. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of what might change, how this might set us all back in our journey to really fully occupying the principles of unity and freedom and equality. I'm afraid. I can feel that fear. And then if I sit with that fear for a few minutes, I feel a deep sense of grief, a deep sense of sadness. And as I allow myself to feel these feelings, to feel grief and sadness, it really feels more powerful to me than just pushing everything away and resisting what's happening in the world. And it isn't just sitting with the discomfort and stewing in it. It's just being with what is in a very spacious and open and safe place, grounded in God, until I can see it from the perspective of God, from the strength of God within me, until it dissolves in the light, until I can step into that space once again of trust and flow and allowing, until I feel myself know that the universe is always working in my favor, in all of our favors, in life's favors, that it's always moving towards a greater expression of peace and love and wholeness, even when the things that seem to pop up in front of me are in total contradiction to God. But I let them show up. But what is that saying? When what needs to be healed has to be revealed. I sit in that. So then when I'm in that space where I'm allowing them to be without pushing them away, I can bring them into the light and into the wholeness of God and see them through the lens of universal good. And it seems more powerful to me than simply saying, no, I'm not going to go there. because that just perpetuates the feeling of fear, feeling of anger and frustration, the feeling of fear, and the feeling of sadness and grief. So that's what I've been doing. And I mentioned before that equanimity is not passive. That didn't feel passive, did it? Equanimity doesn't mean that if we're sick, we're not going to do anything about it. We're not going to come into a consciousness of wholeness or see a doctor. Or if we're experiencing lack, it doesn't mean that we're not going to shift into a feeling of God's abundance. You know, if we've lost our job, we're not going to just lay down and say, oh, well, I guess that's just how it is. That's not what equanimity is. Equanimity gives us the space to experience what is without resistance, so that we can shift into a consciousness, I call it a vibrational equivalent, of what we want to experience, of what is in alignment with God and of our good. And then we follow our divine guidance and we move and we do what we're called to do. Equanimity and surrender are very active aspects of God consciousness. They're not weak. They are the realization of the strength of God within us. As Holmes told us, the power within you is the power of God. The presence within you is the presence of God. And this is why we are strong. Let's pray. So I move into that space, that wide open space of equanimity, where all things are contained in the strength and the power and the presence of the divine, which we are one with. There is nothing that separates us from this power and presence and strength. So I speak my word for and about each and every person that is on this call, for every person that is not, and for the entire consciousness of life on our planet and for our planet itself. That there is a shift in consciousness, in all beings, that knows the good that we are already. That we don't have to do anything to fix anything. We move into the consciousness of the all good, into the strength of God that we already are. And we express that in the world. We call to do what we're to do, what is ours to do, divinely guided, and our steps are laid out in front of us. But there is no need to worry or fix or stumble in the mud, for we are the allness of the divine. And we can encounter and hold all of it. Standing on that cornerstone, swaying in the breeze without breaking. We have the strength of the divine presence. So I just say thank you for this, knowing that it is true. And that as I speak these words, I am impressing law with this truth to be the experience of my experience and the experience of all. I was sitting grateful, gratitude. I think that was redundant, but you get the idea. And I know that all is well. And I just hold that presence within me, release my word, and together we say, and so it is. Oh, well, alrighty then. I'm going to change this back to gallery view so I can see all your faces. Well, I am really not sure who is doing oh God, bless your sweetheart. It's doing our time of giving. I think we probably all know the ways to give, so I'm not even gonna put that up. I'll just let you speak.
Hey, not much to say. What we got here is good, and we all like it. And so we appreciate your contributions because it helps us stay on the air. That's all. That's about all I got to say.
Yeah, and that's about all that's about the truth. I'd say. So I'm gonna show the affirmation.
All I got to say except for this, everything flows from the nature of God's good. We give and receive from this flow in gratitude and love. We rest in the infinite giving nature of spirit, and so it is.
So it is beautiful. And so as far as announcements go, we'll do our Monday night prayer group. We are going to skip this Tuesday. We finished our book, The Law of Manifestation. We're going to skip this Tuesday, and the next Tuesday on April 8th, Ralane and I are going to do an evening of grace. We're going to talk about grace. And did you want to say anything about that, Ralane?
Yeah, Reverend Missional and I are going to deepen together with all of us on the topic of grace, because I think we all enjoyed it when we were in the prayer circle. And if you want to bring anything or any words of wisdom that you'd like to share, or any experiences or stories, that would be wonderful too.
Great. Thank you.
And then there's a prayer circle this Wednesday.
Oh, is it that's right. This is the first Wednesday of April. On April Fools, I think. No, it's the second.
I think it's the second, yeah.
Missed that. And then the following Sunday, next Sunday the 6th, we'll be down at Ohm. We will Zoom, but we'll be with our Ohm brothers and sisters, and that should be fun. And I'm looking forward to that. And then on May 4th, we're doing the Essence of Prayer, Insights Through Interfaith, which really reminded me of that story that you read, that you told us, Ralane. That was beautiful, by the way. I really appreciated that. And yeah, so anyway, that's where we are. That's about all I got for right now. And Rob, can I invite you to do our closing prayer, benediction?
Let us do that.
Let's do that.
Let us just fall into the quiet, into the peace, fall into the goodness of God, just feeling it all, and knowing within ourselves that it is so easy to stay in equanimity, because we live in God, and living in God is good. And yes, changing circumstances are interesting, but living in God is good. And the cool thing about that is we never get kicked out of God. So I am so grateful that this is so. I'm grateful for this service. I'm grateful for the wisdom here, the wisdom, the fun story from Ralane, and I am so delighted in the wisdom from Michelle, and I am so delighted that each of us is here contributing just by being here. There's a contribution that each of us is making to the group. We are better for the fact that each of us is here. Thank you, God. Thank you for the goodness. Thank you for the continuing value of one heart, one mind. I release my word, and together we say, and so it is.
And so it is. Thank you for that. It was beautiful. And thank you, everybody, for just being here today. And I have one more song that they'll play. This must be Daniel Day, because I picked another Daniel song. I thought went right along with what we were talking about today. So we're gonna do one more Daniel song. It's just about flow for me. So.
I've seen my share of struggle when I thought that I knew best, when I've sailed through a storm instead of stopping to rest. And it always seems the hardest when I've made up my stubborn mind. Well, I'm changing my ways this time. Wanna be like water coming down a mountain into shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. Wanna be like water, head uphill no more. I am bound for the sea. Have you ever seen an eagle head straight into the wind? He He doesn't pick a fight, he spreads his wings and just gives in. And in the end he always makes it home just fine. I guess he knows that every storm subsides. Wanna be like water coming down a mountain into shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. Wanna be like water, head uphill no more. I am bound for the sea. I'll let nature take its course. No more thinking that I know where this river's meant to go. I have railed against the stars for the cards that I've been dealt, for the lottery I've never won, for the heartache that I've felt. But it always seems when I let go of expectation and regret, life has plenty of surprises for me, yeah. I wanna be like water coming down a mountain into shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. Wanna be like water, head uphill no more. I am bound for the sea. Wanna be like water coming down a mountain into shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. Wanna be like water, head uphill no more. I am bound for the sea.
I am bound for the sea. Love that song. I love Daniel. It was great. All right, I am going to stop our recording. And I will upload this later today if you want to send it to a friend.